So earlier this week, I did a short video on Zillow's big announcement and whether or not that had any impact on the real estate market here in the greater Philadelphia area. Well, this time in this video, I don't want to talk about the impacts of Zillow's decisions on the real estate market. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of videos out there that talks about people's opinions and thoughts on how Zillow's decision to pull out of the iBuyer space will disrupt or not disrupt the real estate market. So again, if you are interested in any of that, that is not what we're going to go over today. As a matter of fact, what I want to go over or maybe talk about today is, well, some of my opinions, or maybe just to play devil's advocate and to get people thinking a little bit, because I've been hearing a lot of people bash Zillow, and rightfully so. I've been bashing Zillow for years for many, many reasons. I do believe they are a very toxic company at the end of the day, but people are stating that they have taken a loss and that their decisions just don't make sense. But before we dive into any of that, a little bit of house cleaning. I'm Chris Nelson with Gemstone Realty, and this channel is all about real estate advice, tips, and tech. So if any of that excites you, you are in the right place. But do me a favor, drop me a comment, hit that thumbs up, consider subscribing, and mash that bell so that you're notified of my future content. So as I mentioned, everybody is talking about Zillow and how they're selling these properties at a discount and how they're taking a huge loss. So that's one thing that I want to talk about in this video, but there's another thing that I want to discuss at the tail end of this video that I think people aren't considering when it comes to why Zillow has made this abrupt decision to just completely halt their services. So first, let's talk about the numbers and whether or not Zillow is really taking a loss. For the most part, when people look at an investment or a return, they're looking at it on a per property basis. That's how most investors work. They buy a property, they rehab it, they sell it, they look at whether or not they made or lost money. But Zillow is not your average investor. They don't have the average pockets that the average investor has. So they're looking at their return a little bit differently, and they're not looking at it on a per property basis. If anything, they're looking at things as a whole. Whether it is strategic financing. Now again, on the surface, the properties that they're purchasing are cash transactions, but that isn't necessarily money out of their operating account. Usually there is some strategic behind the scenes financing, whether it's private money or whatever the situation may be, to leverage their assets. It's a way for these companies to avoid some liability at the end of the day. So again, they're looking at it in a different perspective. So let's say that Zillow bought 1,000 properties and they sold 800 of those properties, which they made money. Things was business as usual and they were making money on those properties. But now here they have 200 or 20% left of that pool. And although they made money on the 800 properties, the headline is that roughly 65% of those 200 properties are being listed or put on the market at a discount, meaning Zillow is losing money on those properties. But the average discount, now of course there are some examples out there of some properties being listed for $50,000 or $60,000 less than Zillow bought them for, but that's not the average. As a matter of fact, the average discount that we're seeing right now is about 1% to 2% under what Zillow originally paid for these properties. So that's not a huge loss when you take into consideration that they made money on the other 80% of their properties that they've purchased and have resold, and they still likely will make money on 35% of the properties that they're looking to put on the market or have put on the market under this liquid fire sale. Liquid fire, that's kind of contradictory, but under this fire sale. So there's still an opportunity for them to make money. Also, as we've seen in some markets, the fact that your property is listed for a certain dollar amount doesn't necessarily mean that your house is going to sell for at or under that. We are still very much in a seller's market where homes are selling in many markets for above asking. So even those homes are on the market at a discount, we don't know what they're going to sell for. The next thing to consider when it comes to their number is that if you look at Zillow's business model on how they work the acquisition side of things, well, there actually were some fees baked in there for the seller, right? If you were going to list your home with me or any other realtor for that matter, there are fees. Well, there are fees with Zillow as well. And those fees generally were anywhere between 8 and 10%. So if they're making 8 to 10% upfront on the acquisition, but they're selling them at a 1 to 2% discount, are they really losing money on these properties? Again, I don't know. Major assumption. So whatever I'm missing or overlooking, please let me know and educate me, because this is all new territory for me as well. But forget the numbers. At the end of the day, most people don't believe that this is a numbers game, or the numbers are the reason that Zillow is really pulling out of the market. Prior to Zillow really putting the brakes on everything, there was an announcement that they were actually going to slow down the acquisition because of the supply chain, which makes sense. But if you were to think about it, if this is one of your biggest revenue generating operations for your company, you wouldn't just say we're done. You'd figure out a way to make it work. Theoretically, you would scale back. You would scale back based on what the market can supply for your operation. But Zillow decided not to do that. They just said we're out. So when I got into real estate 20 plus years ago, there was something where a lot of affiliated services worked together without proper disclosure. What I mean by that is, if you were to buy a new construction home back in early 2000 or late 90s, a lot of times in order to make that deal work, you would need to use the builder's lender. You would also need to use the builder's title company, and quite often the builder's realtor. So everything was in-house. And what happened is that we realized that there are a lot of unethical and unhonest people. And when you have everything under one umbrella with very little oversight, well, it makes room for fraud. If you look at what Zillow decided to do, and if you are, I don't care who you are, if you are a buyer, a seller, a renter, generally someone over the age of 18 who is familiar with real estate, Zillow is a household name. Zillow this, Zillow that, Zillow said this about my house. Zillow a lot of times gets more credibility than your local realtor. If you think about it, Zillow owns Trulia. They own the biggest real estate websites where people go to not only for information, but to find homes. So now Zillow owns homes. And for the last few years, Zillow has also made it clear that they have intentions to enter the real estate space from a transaction perspective. So now they have realtors. As a matter of fact, I believe in certain markets, they even have brick and mortar locations, offices that you can physically walk to and conduct business. Now, at the end of the day, Zillow also has their own paperwork. And if you really look at what is starting to happen, or what was starting to happen, in my opinion, is Zillow was finding their own way because they are a juggernaut. They have all of this data. They know who wants to buy for what and how much money people are willing to overpay in certain markets, and all of this really crazy information to make a savvy decision, not to just pull the brakes or put the brakes on the operation. But there's something bigger going on, in my opinion. And I think what's going on is that they realized that the public wasn't going to just let this juggernaut take over and come into the real estate space and almost put us back into a situation that we were in 20 years ago, where appraisals didn't matter. Zillow now gets to make up the sale price. They can jack up the Zestimate that you think your house is somehow correlated to, but they can jack up the Zestimate. So now that $600,000 home is a $700,000 home. And if you really believe everything that Zillow tells you or has been telling you, why would you question that value? So now you're gonna deal with their realtor, who's gonna confirm that, yeah, our website's accurate. They're gonna deal with their lender that's gonna say, you've got good credit and a good down payment. You don't need an appraisal. We're gonna give you an appraisal waiver. And then down the road, as you can see, it's a disaster. So again, these are just some of my thoughts and opinions. I have been watching videos, as if you're watching this video, you probably have been as well. So again, let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to Zillow's decision to pull out of the real estate space, and what exactly does it mean to you and your community. Once again, I'm Chris Nelson with Genstone Realty, team lead of the Nelson Home Group. We are here to help you in any which way we possibly can. With that being said, take care.